All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the potentially, we'll see how everybody is up, how long we all last. Potentially slightly extended edition. We'll see what we can do. Get a couple of blot in before the weekend. Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, Amar Rabbi Yanai, which is about, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 lines up from the bottom, right? And we're sponsored this week by Anonymous. Amen. In the merit of all those in our community who are in need of a shidduch. And today's daf is sponsored by my father, Mr. Loiterman, Ili Nishmas, Rabbi Loiterman's uncle, my uncle, Mr. Michael Pakin, Mishalom Lev ben Avram Dov Ber HaKohen.
Your sister's husband?
No. My uncle, my sister's husband, would be my brother-in-law, but I don't have a sister. So it's good we're not doing Yevamos. My uncle is my mother's brother. My mother's brother, right? And his yortzeit is this coming Shabbos, the 3rd of Cheshvan. May his neshama have an aliyah.
Amen.
Okay, so Amar Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai says as follows. Chishev shiyochluhu klovim lemachar. Let's say, as he's doing the avodos this time, his crazy idea is, I'm going to feed this to the dogs tomorrow. Okay. Now, that is pigul, because we're going to learn, Dichsiv, the pasuk says, Es izevel yochlu klovim bechilik Yisrael, that the punishment of Izevel is that she was consumed by dogs. She didn't get a proper burial. She was a terrible person who slaughtered prophets, and we see that dogs consume. The word achila is referred to what dogs do when they consume their meat. Therefore, since pigul, the isser is having machshava for an achila after this man, even if a dog's doing the achila, right? And even, let's say, for example, I think we had asked this question, right? What if the Kohen has in mind that somebody else should eat it after the time? Doesn't matter who's doing the eating, even a dog, it's still considered to be pigul. Maskif the Rabbi Ami says, but wait a second, if that's true, Elamiyat, if what you're saying is true, anytime the Torah says something is eaten, Chishev shetachlu eish l'machar. What about if you think that a fire will eat it tomorrow? Dichsiv, as a pasuk says, and you think that, well, fires don't eat things, fires burn things. No, pasuk says, tochlu eish lo nufach, that in Eov, it says that the wicked, I think this is talking about the wicked people, they are going to be consumed by a fire that is not, doesn't need to be blown, right? It doesn't need to be fanned. It's the fires of Gehenna. So hachinami de pickle. So also, if you think that if fire is going to eat your korban tomorrow, if fire is going to eat this tomorrow, that should also be pickle.
The fire in the Mizbeach, did it ever go out, or was it always?
The fire in the Mizbeach never went out, but that is not this. This is just talking about fires in general, right? And if you're going to say, sure, that is true as well, that consuming fire is going to be pigul. That's not. Look what our Mishnah said. Our Mishnah said, Lecho kechatzi zayis, if he has in mind that he's going to eat half an olive outside the right time, lahaktir chatzi kazayis, and he's going to burn on the Mizbeach half a kazayis, kosher. That is okay, right? She'ein achila v'aktara mitztarfa, because eating and burning don't combine together to make this the isser. So the answer is, it all depends on what you say. If you say, I'm going to eat half and the Mizbeach is going to eat half, then it would combine. Eating and eating is able to combine. What is the Mishnah talking about? Da'afka b'lashon haktara. We use the word burning. If he uses the word burning and eating are not the same. Eating and eating are the same. And it is true that fire can eat things too. Therefore, even though you're talking about the same idea of what's really happening, one way it works, one way it doesn't. Eating and burning are two different words, but eating and eating are.
If the wood catches fire, isn't that the fire?
We're talking about korbanos. Don't start bringing korbanos, the wood and fires and things on the Mizbeach. This is talking about intent, the intent that we're going to have. We're having the intent to destroy this korban outside and beyond the right time. Right? Whatever method we do, it doesn't even have to be on the Mizbeach. It could be just fire in general. Okay? We'll talk about the fires on the Mizbeach when we get to Maseches Midos and Tamid and those things. But I don't want to go like side tracks. So, boy, Rashi asked a question. Chishev lecho kazayis b'shnei b'nei adam. What if his intent is that he wants to eat a kazayis amongst two people? Right? You'll eat half and that guy will eat half. So mahu, what happens to that intent, right? Basar machshava azlinan, do we say, well, his intent was for a kazayas to be eaten. and that's what takes for pigul, right? De'ika shiura, and that is he had a kazayas in mind. O basar ochlin azin. Do we look? Is there any individual person who violated the prohibition? No, each of the people didn't do it. Veleka shiura, no one person did it. Amar Rabbi.
Like we will learn in Shabbos.
Correct. Same idea, except it depends on which way you're looking at it. The guy thought about a whole kazayas. So therefore it is a whole kazayas. Or is it the people who he's thinking about are each going to eat half? So it's not a whole kazayas. That's why it's an additional different question. So, Amar Abai says, Toshma, come listen. Le'echol kechatzi zayis ulahaktir kechatzi kazayis kosher. The Mishnah says he's going to eat half a kazayis, and the mizbeach is going to burn half a kazayis. It's kosher she'ena chilav aktar mistarfim, because the two languages don't combine together. Ha le'echol ve'lechol. That means what the Mishnah doesn't say. The Mishnah doesn't say that if you were to have eating and eating, right? That would be dumya de lechol lahaktar in the same type of case, i.e., as we just said, it was fine, where the person is going to consume half and the mizbeach is going to consume half. So then that would be fine. I mean, that would be pigul. It would be fine. Would not be fine. It would be pigul. Vehechi dami b'shnei b'nei adam mitzdarif. So that is like two different individuals, right? You can't be the person and the mizbeach are two different things. So therefore, shma mina, you see from here that the two, it's about the machshav, the two different people can combine together, right? So that's the proof.
So it doesn't work like it works. It doesn't work like that.
It works like Shabbos, except the case is not like Shabbos. That's their point, right? With Shabbos, two people are doing half the malacha. Here, one person is doing the entire malacha, which is thinking about a kazayas. That's the point. It's thinking about the kazayas. That's the point. That's the problem. Not thinking about half a person to do it in half. Correct. Thinking about it. Therefore, regardless of whether the consumption that you are thinking about is half a share, that doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, you're thinking about a whole consumption. Boy, Rava asked me a question. Chishiv le'achol kazayis be'yeser michdei achilas pras. Let's say he thinks we'll have it consumed by a person, and the kazayis will be consumed, but he's not going to eat it fast enough, right? When we're sitting down at our Pesach Seder, we've got to eat our matzah fast, right? Bechdei achilas pras, right? Why? Because you've got to eat it in the amount of time it normally takes to eat such an amount.
Is that the first night and not the second night? Because the second night is midrabanan. The first one is midraisa.
That's not so simple. Okay. So, let's say he thinks he's going to eat this later, but the eating that he's going to do, he doesn't plan to be within the K'dei Achilas Pras. Okay? So now, Mahu, what is the halacha? Do we consider this like, look, I mean, if it was burned on the Mizbeach, the burning of the fire takes more than 8 or 9 minutes to consume the whole thing, right? It's going to take longer than that to completely devour something down to ash, right? So let's compare eating consumption to that. If that's going to be a valid consumption for the sake of violating pigul, creating pigul, then for sure eating something, then a person also eating it, taking 15, 20 minutes, also should be. Oh, or not. We're going to compare it to a regular person eating it. Right? Eating, that's the question. When a person eats this, are we going to compare it to a korban being consumed on the Mizbeach, or are we going to compare it to a regular person eating?
What happens if you compare it to a korban?
Then it's going to take longer. Right?
Take as long as you want?
Well, not as long as you want, but we're just presuming that having in mind to consume this tomorrow slowly is going to be pigul.
Okay.
Right? Just like the Mizbeach fire would consume it slowly.
Okay.
Well, why would we frame it like that? Like as a consuming on the right? We've been framing until now that it's eating. And now we said that burning something.
Because the question we're asking is, does time, I guess the question we've been asking is time relevant? You can't say time is relevant when we know that time is not relevant when you're burning it on the Mizbeach.
But if you're burning it, that's not.
So then your answer is the second way of pointing it, but you're burning it then. And this is eating it. So you can't really, right? So therefore that's really the question. Which way are you looking at it? So Amar Rabbi says, Toshma, come and look at our Mishnah. Mishnah says, "Lechol kechatzi zayis ulahaktir kechatzi zayis." We're going to eat half a gazayis. We're going to burn half a gazayis. Then it's kosher. Why? Shein achilu baktar mitzarfim, because eating and burning do not combine together. Time off. The reason why it doesn't work is delechol lahaktir is because you can't combine the words to eat and to burn. Halechol ve'lechol. If he would have said, "I'm going to eat. I'm going to have the mizbeach consume it. I'm going to have a person consume it." Mitzarfim would combine together. V'hayaktar b'yosem michtei achilas pras. Now, in that case, the consumption that we're talking about on the mizbeach, we're calling consumption, is going to take longer. Dilma behesek godol. So therefore, that's our proof. It could take longer. The answer is no. Maybe what he's saying, maybe what's going on is there's a huge fire on the mizbeach at that point, and if there's a huge fire, then it will get consumed within the right amount of time. So that doesn't prove.
If someone eats treif, but they eat treif really slowly,
yes,
is that
not in a sidorais? It's not going to be you're not going to be chayv for the avera, right?
No kidding. Okay.
Yep. Right? As long as you don't eat, right? That's why if somebody can on Yom Kippur, if they have to eat, we tell them to eat in small amounts.
Well,
right?
you thinking of eating treif? Is that what you're asking?
No.
It's usher to do so, but you don't get the punishment for it. Okay. Now, le'echol kechatzi zayis ulahaktir kechatzi zayis kosher. Mishnah said that if you're going to eat half a kazayis and you're going to burn half of it, so then then it's kosher. It doesn't invalidate the offering. Time of lechol lahaktir. So as we said, it's because you said I'm going to eat it, I'm going to burn it. Hal lechol v'lechol. If you said that I was going to eat it and the mizbeach's going to eat the other half, davar she'ein darko le'echol mitzdarei v'lechol davar she'ein darko le'echol. Even though it's going to be something which is the emurin, something that's burned on the mizbeach, which is not normally eaten, it's mitzdaref, it will combine together, right? I'll have a half of the kazayas of the fats that get burned on the mizbeach together with half of the meat that is going to be eaten. That would combine together, and that will create pigul. Now, haktani reisha, but at the beginning of the Mishnah, then we said as follows: lechol es shedarko lechol es shedarko lechol in, right? That what's going to combine is if you eat something which is normal to eat. So that means, eshedarko lechol in, if you're consuming something which is the normal way of consumption, so then it will be included she'ein darko lo. But if it's something that's not supposed to be consumed, like we had those tails and things that we were discussing, let's say the forbidden fats, right? Those things are supposed to be burned on the mizbeach, then that's not going to be, shouldn't combine as consumption and be included. So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Hamani, who is this opinion, this end part of the Mishnah going like? It's like Rabbi Eliezer. It's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. To Amar, mechashvin me'achilas adam la'achilas mizbeach, me'achilas mizbeach la'achilas adam.
How about like an oil offering? When you think about achila, it shouldn't be a problem because it's not.
Hang on, let me finish the sentence here. It's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion that we say that we can interchange something which is going to be eaten by a person to that which is going to be consumed by the mizbeach, and vice versa. Ditnan, as we learned as Mishnah, hashochet es hazevach le'echol davar she'ein darko le'echol. Let's say somebody slaughters the korban to eat something that's not eaten, right? The forbidden fats, or as Brian is saying, korban ola, right? I'm going to slaughter it, and I'm going to have in mind I'm going to eat that which is not normally consumed, or lahaktir davar she'ein darko lahaktir, or I'm going to burn some of the meat which is not normally supposed to be burned. Kosher, that is not going to be pigul, because you are not talking about normal consumption, right? So it does not work. For Rabbi Eliezer disagrees. He says posel. He says no, that is still consumption, even though you're consuming it in the wrong way, and that's still going to be pigul. Therefore, our Mishnah, which seems to imply that you can combine, you can call eating of the fats of the mizbeach eating. That must be going to Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so that's the idea. And does that answer your question, Brian, a little bit? Right? Good. So Abaye says no. Afilu tema Rabbanan. No, our Mishnah really, this can go according to the Rabbanan as well, because velo tema ha le'echol ve'lechol davar she'ein darko le'echol. Right? We're not suggesting here that what's happening is that the first half of kazayas is meat, which the person is going to consume, and the second half of the kazayas is the emurin, the fats that are being burned on the mizbeach. Ella ha le'echol ve'le'echol davar shedarko le'echol. What he means to say is that he is going to eat half a kazayas, and then the other half is going to be meat that is also going to be consumed on the mizbeach. He's going to burn the other half of the meat on the mizbeach. So when he uses the word lechol, then that will combine. So maybe even according to Rabbanan, when he uses the word lechol, it has to be a shedarko lechol, something that's going to be eaten. It's going to be burnt. But that we said was okay. The fact that it's going to be burnt is still considered consumption. But in order to call it achila, it has to be davar, something which is going to be eaten. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to ask the question on what Abai is saying. Okay, my kamash malon. What is this? What is the end of the Mishnah then teaching us? If it's coming to tell us that if he's had in mind, right, that he has half a kazayas of something which is normal to eat and another half a kazayas which is normal to eat, that we already said at the beginning of the Mishnah, right? Right? He's going to combine two intents, right? He's going to eat half of a kazayas outside of the azara, half a kazayas out. He's going to eat outside the right time, then it's puzzle. Pigul, which would mean that if he said, I'm going to eat this half and I'm going to eat that half outside the right time, that would be in fact pigul. And that means that what's going on, which is what you just suggested, the end of the Mishnah was telling me, that if I have two halves of items which are fit for consumption, they combine together and they make pigul. If the point is that you're trying to combine eating half a kazayas and the burning of half a kazayas of the emurim, and we're going to say that that's kosher, so midukya deresha shmamina. We already learned that, right? That from the beginning of that we learned that from before this. Lechol davar shedarko lechol in, as we said, only if it's going to consume something which is going to be eaten, then the machshava is going to be poselet, right? But you can't have intent to consume, to eat she'ein darko lechol lo. You can't have in mind to eat that which is not eaten. So okay, so hashta. So now, what's going on here? Uma lechol ve'lechol davar she'ein darko lechol lo mitzdaref. So now, if what you're saying is that if he has intent to eat half a kazayas of meat, and to eat half a kazayas of something which is not supposed to be eaten, which is the fats, so they don't combine together. What would be the point of the end of the Mishnah saying, if I even said I plan to eat this and I plan to eat that forbidden fats, why would the Mishnah need to tell me if he says I'm going to eat meat and I'm going to burn the fats, that doesn't combine? Of course that doesn't combine. Even if he said I was going to eat the fats, which he can't eat, that wouldn't combine, right? Nothing of it. As soon as you get the fats into it, it won't combine because you can't eat them, right? So what is the point of the end? So the Gemara explains, le'echol ulehaktir itzterich. The answer is, he has in mind that he's going to eat half a kazayas and he's going to burn half a kazayas. I need that. Why? Because Salka Daita Chamein, I would have thought to have said, Hasam Hu Lavki Urche Kamachashev, that if he would have thought, I'm going to eat the fats, that wouldn't combine together with I'm going to eat the meat, because you don't normally eat the fats, right? But if I said I was going to burn the fats, that would be less of a problem because I do burn fats. That's what I'm supposed to do with them. So if I eat the meat and I burn the fat, since I'm doing both in their proper way, maybe that could combine. But we say no. But now he said we can't do that either because you can't combine the language of eating and the language of burning. That's the only problem with that. But here, right, what he's doing is he's going to consume half of the kazayas of meat and he's going to burn half of the kazayas of the fat. Each one's going to go its own way. And if I would say that you can combine kamash malan, so therefore this comes to tell us that no, you cannot combine them together. Okay. Hadranach kol zevachim shekiblu daman. Hadranach kol zevachim shekiblu daman. Hadranach kol zevachim shekiblu daman. The end of the second parak. We move on to parak the third. Parak kol ha-psulin. Kol ha-psulin. Okay. Any korban, kol ha-psulin, sheshachtu shchitason kshera, anybody who is puzzle to do service in the Beis HaMikdash can do shchita. You don't have to be a Kohen to do the shchita. You don't have to be, you can have a mum do the shchita. All of the psulim that we said, that you could be a woman, do the shchita. That's right. big question, because I'm not sure whether it might be an issue of women doing shchita altogether, so subject to...
Based on that extra word in the Gemara.
Yeah, right. So now, right, because we had discussed that.
Kol is going to be what is the extra word? Kol pasulim. Is that what we're going to say?
We had talked to the Gemara before that we said a zar and noshim are not kosher for doing avoda. We said, well, why do you have to say zar? Why do you have to say zar and noshim? And a woman, by definition, isn't she a zar? She's not a kohen. The answer is no. Sounds like what the Gemara is saying. I was pointing out that there's a diuk in the Rishonim that it could be that a woman, the problem that is with a woman is not that she is not a kohen. What difference does that make? What punishment she gets if she serves, right? If she's serving as a non-kohen, non-kohanim get punished with different misa b'dei shemayim for doing the avoda, and a woman might not get punished with that same punishment if she does the avoda, right? Because she's not a zar. Anyway, that was a side issue. But all of the psulim can do their shchita's kosher. Shashchita kshira b'zarim. Shchita's okay by non-kohanim. U'benashim, right? Very clear right there. And women, uba avadim, right? Definitely a deal, right? We got to have that. That's why it's better to read. Uba avadim, right? And by servants, even avadim kananim can even do it, right? And uba tameim, people who are tamei can do it. Vafilu bekoche kochim, even koche kochim. Uba vad shelo tameim nogin babasar. The only thing you have to worry about is you can't have the people who are tamei touch the meat, right? Because if they touch the meat, they'll transfer their tumah and make it all tummy, and then that ruins it, right? So they have to shecht it with a very long knife.
They can't be standing in the Azara, right?
Oh, yeah. But also an issue, right? The tummy people standing in the Azara. So we'll have, right? But let's say they could be standing outside the Azara with a 10-foot knife, right? That would be acceptable.
Do you have to shecht it in the Azara?
The kachim do. And actually, no, all of them have to be shechted in the Azara. The kachim have to be done in the north.
Right.
Right, but right. The question is how far the north is. You could be pretty close, depending on which shita we held. What was the definition of north? Right, that was our conversation. What was the definition of north of the mizbeach? Lefichach, therefore, hein poslin b'machshava. They can ruin the korban by having the wrong thought. Since their shita is kosher, they have the power of making an affecting pigul.
So what you say, women nashim could
Do shita. Yeah. Vekulon shekiblu es hadam chutz lizmano. All of them, right? They accept if they catch the blood, all the psulim, if they catch the blood, and they have in mind that they are going to consume the korban outside of its proper time, vechutz l'makom, or outside of its proper place. Im yesh dam nefesh, if there's more blood coming out of the animal, yachzor kosher v'ikabel. Then just get a regular coin, go back and fix that problem. Because, right, they themselves are puzzle for that service. So therefore, their catching the blood is nothing, right? That's not actual catching blood because they're not kohanim, so it doesn't work. So therefore, a coin can go back and fix it.
But the coin should go back in.
Nefesh, yeah, the nefesh. We said the nefesh chai.
Right, he has to have the dama nefesh. There has to be more dama nefesh.
Right, but if the Kohen misses it, and if the Kohen doesn't receive that and it's missed, how can you go back and fix it?
There's more.
There's more, but
I'm not sure how long it takes for the blood to come out of the animal, but apparently it's long enough that they would have had somebody accept the blood, and then they would have said, "Hey, you're not a Kohen," pushed him out of the way, and then put another guy in there and have the Kohen continue to catch the blood.
even though the first squirt didn't, you said
it's not the first squirt, right? As long as it was explained to me, and I'm not 100% sure. I take a look. Maybe we'll get a video that if you have the stomach for it, that as long as the blood is squirting rather than running out, right? It has to be shooting.
You said it can't be the first nick,
Right.
for blood from the skin.
Right.
It has to be, you have to let it do it for a second and then catch it. But my question is, the czar is not allowed to be makabel adam, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if the czar has a bad.
That's the point. So therefore, since the Kabbalah is invalid, the fact that he has a machshava of pigul doesn't ruin the korban. Just get somebody up there to do a real Kabbalah, and you can move on.
But even
Erase it.
yeah, but it would be puzzle kabbalah even if there was no bad.
That's true.
machshava,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's true. Yeah. Well, right. So the point is, though, I think the Mishnah's point is, if the guy was a valid Kohen and he did the Kabbalah with the wrong intent, that could ruin the korban,
Okay, yeah.
right? Kibel kosher. Now, if the Kohen who's kosher catches the blood, v'nasan lepasal. This we had at the beginning of the Gemara, right? He then turns around and hands this blood over to somebody who's not a Kohen. He says, "Here, hold this." Right? Then yachsir lekosher. The guy has to give it back to the kosher Kohen. We had brought it in the context of. Doesn't that prove that a person who's puzzle can't, even without walking, right? Is the halacha without walking, is that considered halacha? Because he hands it to him, and this says he has to hand it back. And we explain this doesn't necessarily mean he has to hand it back to where he was. It could mean that he just hands it back to the guy because you can't move, no more forward motion, right? You can't have any more forward motion past the line of scrimmage here. Okay? So
Get a replay.
that's correct. So
Did the coin move far enough?
Kibel bimino, okay, if he caught the blood with his right hand, right, v'nosan lismolo, then he puts it in his left hand. He's carrying it's heavy, puts it in his left hand for a minute. Yachzir limino, he's got to put it back in his right hand and keep going, right? These are the do-overs. You can fix some of these things. That's the point here, right? Kibel b'kli kodesh, right, he catches it in a utensil that is Beis HaMikdash worthy. V'nasan likli chol, and then he turns it, pours it into a utensil that's not appropriate, not a kli kodesh. Yachzir kli kodesh, put it back in the kli kodesh, right? In other words, we had talked about if the blood went on directly onto the floor before. If it goes directly to the floor, then there was no Kabbalah. But if you catch it in the utensil, now there was a Kabbalah. If you then undo the Kabbalah, you could just redo the Kabbalah, put it back in, and you're okay.
But could the blood get tummy eventually if it goes?
It could be tummy if it touches somebody's tummy, right? So nishbach min hakli ala ritzba, if it spills on the floor from the utensil, v'asfo, if you gather it back up, kosher, it's fine, right? Keep going, right? So nisano al gabe hakevesh. Now he sprinkles the blood onto the ramp. Shalo keneged al yesod. Now, before we had intent to, he's doing it. He's sprinkling it onto not opposite the base, right? We're not where the base of the mizbeach is. We're not where he's supposed to do it. Nosan ashani tonin lemata lemalon. He takes the blood that's supposed to be brought below the red line and he puts it above the red line. And vice versa, snitonin lemalon lemata. He takes the blood that's supposed to be sprinkled above the korban chatos blood and he puts it below. So as hanitonim bifnim bachutz, he takes the blood of the korbanos that are supposed to be brought inside the Beis HaMikdash, and he puts them on the mizbeach that's outside the Beis HaMikdash. As hanitonim bachutz, he takes the blood that's supposed to be brought on the outside mizbeach bifnim, and he brings it into the Beis HaMikdash. Im yesh dam hanefesh, if you can go back to the animal and get some more blood, yachzor akosher v'kabel. Then go back and get some more.
He disqualifies everything we learned. Because before we said it's possible.
Exactly.
Now we're saying, but
We said before, if you had the
you can go
machshava
back.
of doing that, then it's possible.
Remember we said before.
Oh, so remember what we had said was that if he has machshavas pigul and then he does the zrika under these circumstances, so then that was considered to be a kosher zrika and therefore was established. Right, that was our point before. Right, but now. Right now, but we said then it was. We said it was puzzle, but we said that the person got a kapara, but the busser was not allowed. Remember, right? That's how we explained
If
it.
the meal wasn't allowed,
So the zrika is kosher, but the busser is not makabel. Now we're suggesting, well, go back and fix the busser, right? Maybe, but we're going to see it's a problem. Don't worry, that's why the Gemara is here. We know too much, so that's good.
If the meat's not allowed, is that like some sort of punishment?
Sorry?
If the meat's not allowed,
It's not a punishment. It's that the matir, what we call the matir, which is the service that permits. It's like this: if I have non-kosher meat because the cow was not shechted properly, is that a punishment? No. It's just that in order to get kosher meat, I had to shecht it properly, and it was not shechted properly. Here, in order to eat the korban, I had to sprinkle the blood properly. The blood was not sprinkled properly, hence I can't eat the meat. It's not really a punishment. It's just, we call it a matir, that this is what needed to happen in order for this meat to be permissible. Okay, so, fine, says the Gemara. Okay. Shachatu, when the Mishnah sounds like, let's start from the beginning, right? They're going to have to go through all this. There's a lot of good questions here in this Mishnah. Let's clarify it all. That's what's going to be a good Gemara. We're already anticipating. Let's see. Now we're all into it. We got. This is good because you were going through the earlier proc going, I don't know what's going on, whatever. we now know enough that we read this Mishnah and went, whoa, there's a lot of questions here. So that's good. We're clearly getting it. Okay, good. So now,
We're all in.
this is good. So, shachtu, when the Mishnah says somebody who's puzzle for doing this shchita, so somebody's a puzzle non-korban can do the shchita, it sounds like shachatu. If they did it, when the Mishnah says, use the language of if they did it, it sounds like di'avad in, if he already did, b'di'avad. Lechatchila lo, but it's not lechatchila, right? Lechatchila don't get a non-kohen. Best get a kohen, but if he did it, then okay. Uraminu, but here's the contradiction, right? Pasuk says in Parshas Vayikra, v'shachat, right? He slaughters. That's shchita bazar. This tells us that you could do shchita with a non-kohen. It's kshera. Right? Because it doesn't say v'shachat ha-kohen or whatever. It doesn't say anywhere in that pasuk about shchita that there has to be a kohen. Shashchita kshira bezorim ubenashim ubavadim ubetmeim v'afilu koche kochem. That pasuk, fifth parak of the whole Sefer Vayikra is telling us you shecht it. Doesn't say a kohen there. So o eino ela bekohanim. Or maybe we're reading the pasuk wrong. Maybe that pasuk does mean that it has to be for kohanim. I'll prove to you that it can't work that way, because the Bryce says, Amart v'chi me'ayin basa. Where would you have learned that there needs to be a kohen from? Mikal shenemar, since the pasuk says, generally speaking about avoda as a rule, v'ata uvanecha itcha tishmuru es kihunaschem lechol dvar hamizbeach. Generally speaking, in Bemidbar Yud Ches, right? You are supposed to, Aaron and his sons, guard your kahuna for all and use it for all things related to the mizbeach. Oh, okay, yachol af b'shchita. So I might think, okay, shchita also leads to the mizbeach, so therefore shchita has to be by kohen. Talmud Lomar, therefore the pasuk in Vayikra says clearly, v'shachat has been a makar lifnei Hashem, v'ikrivu b'nei Aaron ha-kohenim es adam. That part is not quoted in the Gemara, right?
Is this all part of the brisa that records?
Yes.
Okay.
Right? Shachat, was the article not capitalize it? Usually the article capitalizes the Bryce. I think it's how you know, right? So that's good. So then I'm right. It's like sometimes, say it so confidently. Okay, good.
You're right.
So okay, he's going to shecht the cow before Hashem. He's going to shecht the animal before Hashem, and he's going to bring it close. The children of Aaron. Well, what does it say? The children of Aaron bring it close. That means that from Kabbalah, which is where the blood starts to be brought close, on, that requires a kohen. From the beginning, v'shachat doesn't require a kohen. Kabbalah ve'elach mitzvahs kahuna, right? You need a kohen from the catching of the blood and on. Limeid ala shchita shekshir b'kol adam. So this pasuk says that a shchita is kosher for anybody, right? So that's the source. So the Gemara answers. So hu adin dafi lechatchila nami. So you're right. Lechatchila, you could do it. Doesn't matter. Get a good shochet. You get some good. A good shochet is better than a bad shochet kohen, right? Mm-hmm. Better do it with good shochet. Now the question is, why doesn't the Mishnah say? Why does the Mishnah sound like b'diavad? The answer is because tmeim. Because in the list of people who can shech are people who are tamei. Dilachachila lo. We really don't want people who are tamei doing the shchita. Why? Because gzera. Because that's a derabanan. Because shema yigu babasar. They might touch the meat, and then they touch the meat, and they make it tamei. So therefore, tana sheshachtu. Therefore, we say b'diavad. Here's the list of people that they're all kosher b'diavad. Most of them are fine l'chadchila, but tamei is b'diavad. So therefore, the Mishnah lists it that way. Yeah, you.
I think who are tamei are a lot of shecht, right?
That's what we're going to question in 1 second. But yes, people who are tamei are allowed to shech for general purposes, for sure. For karbanos, it's a problem.
If you have someone shechting, who's tamei, wouldn't that make the meat tamei after you shecht it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with it,
sure.
Right? So by a korban, that's going to be a problem, right? By regular meat, it doesn't matter. We're all tamei, and it doesn't bother us because we're not eating it as a korban. But for korbanos, clearly that's going to be an issue, right?
What does it mean? They might touch meat.
Unless
always
it's
touch
meat.
Well, when you're doing shchita, you don't have to touch it,
No?
right? I have a very long knife,
Okay.
and I shech.
So you
That's
never
it.
touch it?
I don't touch it.
Transfer like through the knife.
Does not transfer
You
through
mean
the knife. No.
like a katana or bigger than a katana?
Sorry,
Like a katana or bigger than a katana?
you need a big knife. You need a big knife.
Doesn't also
You mean
matter
a
what
katana
kind of-
knife,
what
like a
kind of
Japanese knife?
Yeah.
tamei they are. If they're tamei and mace, fine. But if they're tamei,
If you're tummy, if you are a sheni latuma, first remember that kodshim can become even a revi'i latuma, right? It could be a fourth level. So Tuma is a big problem by Kudshim. Truma gets to Shlishi levels, by Kudshim you get to even Revi levels. You got to really be careful with your Tuma when it comes to the basement. Now there are questions, which is, well, if the blood comes out and he doesn't want it to become Tameh, is that V'chiyutan, is it not? Leaving that question aside, because that's discussed amongst the Mefarshim, where's the Tuma issue here? But just simple enough. You've got a liquid, you've got a animal that you want to keep tahor, and you've got a tummy person. You want to keep those things separate, right? You don't want to put those things together. So now, the tummy diavad chopper dummy. What are you talking about? You're saying b'diavad, a tummy person can shacht, or menu? I'll show you a contradiction from another brisa. V'samach v'shachat. Pasuk, fourth pasuk in Vayikra. Right? We go back one pasuk. Pasuk says v'samach, before we shacht it. What do you do right before you do shachting? V'samach, the whole pasuk is v'samach yado arosha olah. You put you lean onto the head of the olah of the animal. V'nirtzalo l'chaper alav, and then it will be atoning for you. That's right. You confess on it.
Don't you make a bracha on the first shach?
We do make a bracha on that. We do make a bracha on karbanos. Rashi, I think it's coming up. Rashi will tell us about that. It's actually coming up. And v'shachat, and then you shacht it. So ma smicha b'tahorim. So we know the rule by smicha is only somebody who's tahor can do that, right? Because you can't go into the base of Mikdash to do it. How do you do it? Af shchita b'tahorim. So therefore, there's a hekesh. The Torah puts the two together to tell me that just like smicha only is done by people who are tahor, so to shchita can only be done by people who are tahor, and that's deoraisa. It's not a b'diavad thing. So the answer is midrabanan. What we're suggesting is that that pasuk is not really a drush. That's really not a drush. That's the durabanan. Right? We're saying keep the durabanan. This is an asmachta. The durabanan said keep the people out from doing the shchita. Right? That's really not okay.
B'diavad.
Lechatchila, it's deoraisa. It works. Lechatchila deoraisa. If the person didn't make it tameh and he shechted it, then it will be fine.
In midrabanan, it's not lechatchila, but you can still do it b'diavad.
Well, we're saying Durabanan, don't do it. If he did it, midoraisa, it's kosher.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, right? The halacha, don't do it, is midurabanan. If you transgressed a durabanan, you can't say it's not a kosher korban because the Torah says it is.
Okay. I thought. Okay.
Right. That's how lichatchilas and b'di eveds are working. Right. When we have right that right that Okay, so now, my shna smicha, why is it, one second, why is it that smicha, you can't have somebody who's tummy do it, but shchita you can? Well, why? Why? Dichsiv, because the pasuk says, by smicha lifnei Hashem, right? That means the person who's doing the smicha has to come into the azara. He has to be standing in the azara to do it. And a tummy person can't come into the azara. We learned that before already. So now, shchita nami. Yeah, but shchita also. Ksiv haksiv lifnei Hashem. By the shchita also, it says the word lifnei Hashem. So that means you also have to be standing in the azar when you do the smich, when you do the shchita. So therefore, should also be a problem. So efshar de'avid sakin arucha. The answer is the shchita has to be done before Hashem. But if you've got a long knife, like we've been saying, so then v'shachit and you do the shchita, then that's your solution, right? Get yourself a 10-foot knife, stand outside of the Beis Hamikdash, outside of the azara, and do the shchita, right? The samurai, I don't know, whatever.
We asked you that before. That was one of the questions. If we were standing on the outside,
we had that before, right? If you were dangling, right, in the airspace, if you were standing outside and leaning inside, we did in fact have that a few days ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So this is saying even if you did have a long knife and you were outside the Zara, the Rabbanan, you still should not.
That's correct. Okay. Because you might come. It's too tempting, as Aaron said, right? Really? You're not going to reach it? You're not going to touch it? It says not going to touch it? Like, really? Your animal's moving around, you're not going to touch it? Yeah.
You have to put your hand on...
For smicha. The smicha, you have to do that. Not for shchita.
And it's not basar yet.
So we don't, if you're tummy, you skip smicha, go right to shchita.
Did we say tzitz also takes like...
The tzitz is going to take care of it if it became tameh, but not l'chadchila.
Right.
Right? The tzitz is maratza. If it becomes tameh, you can still throw the blood, or if it goes up on the mizbeach, don't take it down.
You can't do it.
We've got lots of protections for the tumah, but doesn't mean that we want to get there. Right? We all said if it was a korban tzibur, then it was okay, right? Then we can push it off.
Aren't sons maybe when they went to the Kodesh HaKadoshim to give the sacrifice?
No. Okay. Yeah, the issues were wine. The issues could have been wine. The issues there were Mora Halacha with Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a million different shitas or positions. I don't believe there's any of them that say that the issue was that they were tummy. Okay. Smicha nami. So smicha, it says efshar de ma'ayil yodei v'samich. Well, smicha also, he just has to stand outside the azara, and he has to stick his hands in. So, how hard is that? Okay. So the answer is kasavar bia b'miktzah shma bia. The answer is this is the opinion that holds that putting your partial body into the azara is considered like being in the azara, and therefore it's invalid. Rav Chisda masni ibcha. Rav Chisda had a different version of the brisa, and he learned like this: v'samach v'shachat, right? That's smicha and shchita together. Ma shchita b'tahorin, just like shchita has to be with somebody who's tahor. Av smicha b'tahorin. So too, smicha has to be with tahor. See, it goes exactly the opposite way. Starts off with, of course, somebody with shchita has to be tahor. So, ma'ishna shchita. Why do you say that shchita has to be tahor? Dichsev lifnei Hashem, because it says lifnei Hashem. So then. Smicha nami ksiv lifnei Hashem or lam beis with base. Smicha also says lifnei Hashem. So the answer is efshar dema'ayil yodei v'samich. Yeah, but there's a solution by smicha, which is you could stick your hands in from the outside. Well, shchita nami after David sakin aruka v'shachit. Then there's a solution by shchita also. You have a long knife. So hamani, who's this opinion? According to this, Shimon Hatimnihi. This is Shimon Hatimni. Detanya, who learns in a brisa, v'shachat es bera bakar lifnei Hashem. You do the shchita of the animal before Hashem. V'lo hashochet lifnei Hashem. Not the shochet. The shochet doesn't have to be before Hashem. But Shimon Hatimni Omer. Shimon Hatimni disagrees. Minaynchu yadav shel shochet lifnim min hanishchat. How do we know that the hands of the person who's doing the shchita have to be further into the azara than the animal? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, "V'shachat es ben habakar lifnei Hashem." He has to do shchita before Hashem. Shochet es ben habakar yehei lifnei Hashem. He interprets the pasuk to mean the one who is doing the shchita must be in the azara before Hashem. That's not a shchita that we've had before, right? But therefore, that explains that brisa that holds. If you hold shchita can't even be done, it's not even okay b'diavad. That's Shimon HaTimni because it has to be shchita has to be inside, right? Okay. We had raised the issue, how much of your body has to come into the Beis HaMikdash for you to be considered inside the Beis HaMikdash? So let's discuss that issue. Amar Ula, Amar Reish Lakish. Ula said the name of Reish Lakish. Tamei shehichnis yodo lifnim. Let's say a person who's tamei sticks his hand in to the azara. Loka, you get malchus. Right? Yud always wants to know where's the punishments. I told you, punishments are coming. Here's punishment. Somebody who's tamei sticks his hand into the azara, gets malchus. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, bechol kodesh lo siga. Right? Lo saseh, clear lo saseh. Don't touch anything that's kodesh. Right? And then the pasuk continues, ve'al mikdash lo savo. Don't touch anything that's hektish. Don't go into the Beis HaMikdash. Right? Makish bia l'negia. So the pasuk is telling us touching and coming in is the same thing. Man negia b'miktzas, just like touching is done with your hand, right? Just a little bit. And that's b'miktzas shma negia, that is negia. Af bia b'miktzas, so too, just one part of your body inside the Beis HaMikdash area, shma bia, the azara, right? Not the Beis HaMikdash, inside the azara, inside the courtyard, that's considered bia, that's considered coming in, that's where you're going to get punished for that. Eis ve'ravo shaya le'ula.
We said before, what was it?
Smicha was a bigger issue potentially because you have to actually lean on it. That's why we had said that potentially there are more problems. But now we're suggesting even putting just your hand in is going to be a problem, right? Even just if you just stick your hand in, that's going to be an issue of tuma. According to Ula says that's what Reish Lakish says. But Eisvei Rabbi Shaya le'Ula. Rabbi Shaya asks Ula the following question that he's dealing with somebody who has tzaras. What happens if somebody has tzaras? So if somebody has tzaras, becomes the day that he has to show up in the morning and do his korbanos. He stands outside of the azara, stands by the gate, and sticks his limbs through the gate into the area of the Beis HaMikdash, where the Kohen applies the blood and the oil to him, without him going into the azara, because he can't. He's a tvul yom. right? And we had learned, he's a Mechusar Kippurim, Mechusar Kippurim. And remember, we had learned that a Mechusar Kippurim is Zav Kezava, right? We said that he still has the same level of impurity as he had before, so he can't walk in. Just because he's ready to become purified doesn't mean he can walk into the Azara. Until he's done the Korbanos, he can't walk in.
But when he puts his hands through the crack, doesn't that make the area...
That's the problem. So, Mitzora Shechal Shmini Shelo, a Mitzora that his eighth day, falls out, right? He's supposed to be coming on, and it falls out Leos Be'erev Pesach. Turns out, this is where it always gets complicated. People have to show up to bring their Korban Pesach. Okay? He shows up. V'ra'ah keri bo bayom. Now, to make matters worse, he has a seminal emission, a nightly emission on that same day, which makes him tamei as well. But it's a much lesser form of tuma, because he can go to the mikvah, become a teful yom, and he's going to be tahor at night. So his tzaras has to have the tzaras 7 days and all that. But he's a mitzora first, shows up Erev Pesach that night. He sees Keri, and now he's tummy for 2 reasons. V'taval, and he goes to the mikvah. Okay, so he's ready to go. Right, he's going to get his korbanos. He's going till tonight. What happens? Amru Chachamim. The Chachamim said, "Afa pisha ein tvul yom acher nichnas." Look, this tvul yom has another issue. If he's mechusar kippurim, he can stick his hand in and do the service. But now that he's at tvul yom, he's tamei because of the keri. He can't stick his limbs into the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Chachamim, even though that's generally the case, this guy can. Right? He is nichnas.
When do you make the Kohen tamei?
Sorry?
When do you make the Kohen tamei if you put the...
He's a teful yom. He's not transferring the tumah to anything. He's already gone to the mikvah. Right? He's got nothing to transfer. And he's not touching the coin either, because the coin is applying the bloods. Okay, so now, right? So therefore, he can go in.
How can he go in? He hasn't brought the mitzora.
He's only, remember, by the mitzora, he's sticking his one hand in.
That's what we're saying. He can put his
one hand in. That's correct, right? Why? Why could he do it? Why do we let him do this? Because mutov yavo aseh. It's better that he fulfill the mitzvah of doing the Korban Pesach, right? He should become Torah so he can fulfill the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach. Sheyesh bo kares, because if he doesn't do the Korban Pesach, he gets kares for violating that positive commandment. V'yidche aseh, and it will push aside the positive commandment that is tzavis b'nei Yisrael v'yishachu min ha'machaneh, right? That you should command b'nei Yisrael, send them out of the camp. People who are tamei. This guy is a teful yom. He's supposed to be outside of the camp. He can't go into the azara. That's a positive commandment. Shein bo kares. There's no kares for that one. That's just a positive commandment. So he should violate that one, not violate the lacking of bringing the Korban Pesach.
That's what Pesach Sheni is for. That's what I understand.
Pesach Sheni is for Tumas Mace. Remember? Only for
There's got to be some losa say that he's being over, and there's kares for that.
so here's the thing. We had a pasuk that says, Bechol Kodesh lo sigav mikdash lo savo. That's a los asay, right? Right. First of all, so asays are docha los asays. That's going to be the first thing. And I believe that pasuk is also talking about somebody who's actually tamei. And this is... Okay, so now... Rabbi Yochanan says, right, he disagrees. He says, Dvar Torah midoraisa, right, he says, Afilu asay ein bo. There is no mitzvahs asay, not for this Baal Keri to come into the Har Bayis at all. There's no positive commandment. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, in Divrei Yamim, right, so this is already like supplemental materials, Vayamod Yehoshaphat Bekal Yehuda v'Yerushalayim beveis Hashem lifnei hachatzer chadasha. Yehoshaphat stood, he was the king, and he's rededicating everybody to serve Hashem, and he's going to read the Sefer Torah. It's a big momentous occasion. Where does he stand? He stands in the new courtyard. Now, why did they call the Azara, the Har Bayis area, the new courtyard? My Chatzer Chadasha. Why was it new? Rabbi Yochanan says, Shechidshu Badvarim. They made a new law at that point. Amru, they said, V'amru, Tvul Yom Al Yikanes L'Machane Leviyah. They said, new Derabanan, that the Tvul Yom shouldn't come to this area, to the Machane Leviyah, to the Har Bayis area. So,
Azara.
and that the Azara is Yes, the Machane Levia, right? Because Machane Shechina is the base of Mikdash itself, right? Right. So therefore, that means that his sticking his hand into the Azara is only a Derabanan. They established it during the times of Yehoshaphat.
Wait, there's the Machane Levia, Machane Kahuna.
The Machane Shechina, right? The Machane Levia, Machane...
Oh, Yisrael, Levia, and Shechina.
That's right. Okay? So, right, Rabbi Yochanan holds that a Tvul Yom of Azav is not like Azav, right? We had talked about that Mechusar Kippurim of Azav was like Azav, but not necessarily Tvul Yom. So that's going to be their argument. Reish Lakish says there's a problem with him doing it, but it's better that he does it than not do it because otherwise he misses the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Yochanan says there's no problem of him doing it. It's all Durabanan. And the Durabanan is for sure pushed off by the fact that he's got to bring his Korban Pesach. Okay, so now back to Rabbi Shai's question. V'amar bia b'miktas shma bia. Okay, well, if what you're suggesting is that just sticking your hand in is considered going in, heichi mal yadei babahonus. How did the Mitzorah stick his hand in? Right? How does he stick his hand into the Azara? Edi ve'edi, right? Both the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach and the prohibition of a tamei person coming into the Azara are an aseh sheyesh bo karesu, right? So, the eating of the Pesach and the Isser of making a tummy person coming into the Azara is an Isser Kares also. So therefore now you're balancing, right? Why you have a prohibition of Kares, right? The whole discussion we have is whether the person who's a Keri should walk in or shouldn't walk in. But once you're dealing with the Mitzorah is Tameh, this is an Isser Kares. He can't walk in. He can't come in. How's he sticking his hand in?
Why can't you just say, well, the Torah is Exeris Kasser. The Torah said you have to do it.
Yeah, that's the next line.
Oh,
it's good. Good answer. Good answer. It's good. I can see where we're going. Amar Lei. I'm a good Rebbe. Amar Lei. So Ula says back to Rishaya, Mitunach. He says, I mean, that's a very easy answer. We can easily answer that question. Shani Mitzorah. Mitzorah is different. Ho v'huter l'tzaraso, huter l'kiryo. He says what happens is, right, that the Torah tells us that with his tzaras, he can stick his hands in. And now, once the Torah, if his tzaras comes first, we have a principle. If the tzaras comes first, you don't have to worry about any supplemental tumas at all. Right? So therefore, if he was a Mitzorah first and then had a lesser level of Tumah come upon him afterwards of Tumas Keri, so that also isn't a problem because the Torah said he could stick his hands in because if he's a Mitzorah. For sure he can stick his hands in because he's about Keri. It's irrelevant. Right? That's the point that happens there. Okay? So now, the big chiddush that Ula now comes up with is once the Torah permits a certain prohibition, then another prohibition can be also permitted along with it. Right? That's what Ula is now suggesting. So, Amar Rav Yosef says, Kasavar Ula, it seems like what Ula is saying, right? That since you can put your hand in for the Mitzorah, so too you don't have to worry about the Balkari. So, he's going to do that halachas by Korban Pesach. So he says, he says, remember that the halacha by Korban Pesach is that if most of the Jewish people are tamei, right? So then you can bring the Korban Pesach betuma. Okay. So let's say what would happen if Ruban Zovim. Let's say most of Klal Yisrael somehow became azav. Okay. That's a severe type of tumah. And, right, that is...
What's the tumah zahav?
The tumah zav is a seminal emission. It's a bodily fluid emission from your private area, but it's not semen. It's another bodily fluid, right? So if that fluid comes out, you become tamei for that period of time, right? So if most of the people become tamei, they're tamei on Erev Pesach as a zav, v'nasu t'mei mesim. And then afterwards, they touch a dead body, they become tamei meis now also. Okay? Hoel vehutru l'tumasan hutra lezivasan. Well, okay. Now that we know tuma hutra b'tzibor by tamei mace, so therefore you can bring your korban pesach because everybody's a tamei mace. Now you don't have to worry about the fact that they're a zav either, because they're both a tamei mace and a zav. If what Ula is telling me is true, is once the Torah permitted one prohibition, you don't have to worry about the other prohibition. Well, now that the Torah told me I could be tamei mace and bring a korban pesach, if the person is a tumas zav, I solved my tumas zav problem by becoming a tamei mace. And then, because a tamei mace can bring a korban, I don't have to worry about a zav being a zav.
So basically, you just go walk through a graveyard. Yeah.
That's right. Solution. You're a zav, go walk through a graveyard. Right? Marley Abaye. Abaye says to Rav Yosef, me dummy. You've got the two cases non-comparable. He says, Tuma, right, ishtaroi, ziva lo ishtaroi. Right? He says, the Tumas mace has become permitted because it's the majority of the population. But the Tumas ziva is not permitted because of most of the population. Okay, so therefore, even if you solve the problem of Tumas mace, then you're back to the Tumas zav, which was there in the first place. But in the case where we had, the tsaras and the balkari was he was the mitzora first. That was the one that wasn't the problem, and then the zav came upon it afterwards. We're saying don't worry originally, and the more severe one is solved. So therefore, that's very different than the one that's original is the worst one, and then the tumas mace comes afterwards, solved the tumas mace, well then you're back to where you started. Right?
Lose situation.
It's a question of which comes first. Okay? Amarle, so Abai says to Rav Yosef, Dilma hachi kamarmar. Maybe this is what you mean to say. Now, it's always interesting to point out the relationship between Abai and Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef was his Rebbe. Rav Yosef, as he got older in his life, seems to have forgotten some of his teachings. And so he would say things, and Abai would sometimes correct what the things that he said meant to say, and just like fine point. Somebody would correct him. Somebody would say, you taught us this, right? So now, Abaye answers back to Rav Yosef, Dilma hachi kamarmar. Maybe this is what you mean to say. Ruban Tmei Mesim, let's say it was the other way. Let's say they were Tamei Mace first, okay? V'nasu Zavim, and then they became Zavim. Hol v'hutru tumason, hutru lezivason. That since the Tuma got taken care of, the first Tuma, Tumas Mace got taken care of, you don't have to worry about the second Tuma that came upon him, the Ziva, and therefore that's more similar to the Mitzora who then became a Balkari, Amarle, and so that's where Rav Yosef said, yeah, that's what I mean. Rav Yosef said that's the comparison. Okay, but Abaye says, Vakasi Lodami. Still not quite right, because Mitzora Heterahu. He says, when it comes to Mitzora, he's fixed, right? He's permissible, right? Sticking his hand in, we said that the Torah tells us is 100%. It's the right thing to do. Stick your hand in. Hoel v'ishtari. Since the Torah says it's permissible, then it becomes permissible, even though you add the balkari on top of it, right? Tuma, but Tuma is not mutter. Tuma is dechuyahi. Tuma is just pushed off. If you have a majority of Tamei Kohanim, or a majority of the population is Tamei, that just means that you don't worry about the Tuma for now, right? But it doesn't mean that the Tuma is permissible. Don't worry about it. What's the difference? We have this argument comes up in many places. Let's say you have a Tuma Dechuya. Let's say you hold Tuma Dechuya B'tzibur. If you show up to the Beis HaMikdash and there is a Kohen who's Tahor, is it better to use him? If Tuma is Dechuya, it's okay to use a Kohen who's Tamei, but it's better to use a Kohen who's Tahor. But if Tuma is Hutra, then it makes no difference.
I thought Kohen only become tummy.
We said if it's a public sacrifice and the majority are Tamei, then the Tuma is pushed off and the Kohen can serve in the state of Tuma, only Tuma's mace. So
you're saying if it's Dechuya, then you should find it.
That's right. And that's
okay if you did.
And so there's Abai is saying we're holding Tumas Dechuya. It's not the same thing as thinking it's mutter. So lahai idchi, lahai lo idchi. So therefore, despite the fact that the Tumas mace came first and then the Tumas zav came second, the Tumas mace is not really permitted and therefore pushes off the tumas zav. It's just that we accept the tumas mace. It's still there. It's okay, right? And therefore the tumas zav still remains as a problem. Okay. Amar le Rava. So Rava says to Abaye, Adrabba. No, exactly the opposite. Ipcha mistabra. The reverse sounds logical. Mitzora heterahu. Right. So the mitzora that the Torah tells us 100% is permissible. L'hai ishtori, l'hai lo ishtori. Well, then it makes sense that specifically the type of tuma that was permitted should be the thing that's permitted, not the thing that's not permitted. Therefore, the mitzora who becomes a balkari, the mitzora part of him is fine, but the balkari part of him should not be fine. But tuma dechuyahu, tuma is pushed off, meaning you are still tamei mace. It's not like you're not a tamei mace anymore. You're still a tamei mace. Mali chad dechuya, mali shtei dechuyas. If you're tamei mace and you're tamei something else, tamei mace is the main part of what you are, and we don't care. Therefore, it makes more sense to say we don't care about whatever problems you're having. It's one thing to say your problem's not a problem, and then we still have another problem. But now we're saying it, we don't care about that problem. So if we're not caring about your problems, we don't care about any of your problems. That makes more sense according to Rava.
No, so it's not our problem.
So therefore, Miklal, right, from Abaye and Rava, you can learn that Tarvayu Sviralahu, both of them hold Tuma Dechuyahi, that they're both agreeing that in this machlokas that we have in other places about whether Tuma is pushed off or whether Tuma is forgotten about, is mutter, that they're holding it's pushed off. Tuma is Dechuya B'tzibur. Okay, good. The Gemara is going to go back about Ula, this issue of part of you going into the Beis HaMikdash, and discuss it a little bit further. Lema misayeh. Let's say this is going to support, another Bryce is going to support Ula's point. Kol hasmichos shehayu sham korei alei anihem tekef l'smicha shchita. Whenever you do smicha on a korban, right? Whenever smicha is necessary for a korban, the korban chatos, korban shlamim, you have to do the smicha. Okay, I have to do them immediately before the shchita. Okay. No hefsek in between. You do the smicha, immediately take out the knife and shacht it.
What is smicha for a korban?
Put your hands on it, lean on it. Right? We'll discuss all the rules behind it, but that's essentially what you're going to do. Chutz mizu, right? The only one is the asham of the mitzora, the guilt offering of the mitzora. Shahaisa bishar nikanur. Why? Because it was done at the gate of Nicanor, right? They were bringing the korban into the azara, and they were shechting it, right? And they had to make a hefsek she'ein mitzor yochel likanis l'sham, because he couldn't go into the azara in order to do the smicha. Ad shemazon olav midam chatason midam hashamal. They had to pour the blood, or they had to get the blood on him first. So therefore, he can't. So biyamard biyam mixas lo shmabiyah. So therefore, we're saying he can't do this micha. Well, why not? If it's true that part of you is not all of you, and you could put part of you into the azara, so then let him stick his hands in and do the smicha. So I'm Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef says, "How many Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda?" This is Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda that says, "Damar meruchak safon." He holds that the north part of shechting kachim kachim isn't all the way to the door, all the way up to the azara. His opinion is it's that narrow strip in front of the mizbeach. Therefore, the distance from Shar Nicanor to the front of the mizbeach is like 22 amos. So you couldn't do shchita, you couldn't bring the animal to him, have him stick his hands in it, because even if you did that, they still had to walk the animal 22 amos over to the mizbeach. And that's a hefsek. It's not going to help you. Right, so that's why he didn't do shchita. So according to this opinion, that's that shita. That's why they didn't do this micha. Doesn't necessarily prove it was correct that you can't stick your hands in. Okay, so v'li eved pishpesh. So fine. Why don't we solve the problem by making a little door? Right here, let's take a look at our Beis HaMikdash for a second. Okay, we have a solution. We have a Beis HaMikdash. Okay. And the Beis HaMikdash is in this azara. And we're over here by Shar Nicanor. This is where he's sticking his hand in. He's standing here sticking his hand in. And we're saying we have a problem because here's the Mizbeach. And we have to bring this animal all the way from here, all the way to here. That's too far. Because this is the only kosher zone, the north side. So let's make a hole. Let's make a little gate right here in the wall and solves problem. Then you could stick your hands in over here.
But that's not part of the Dalad Amos, so it's in the courtyard, isn't it?
He's not in the courtyard. That solves our problem. He's not in the courtyard. Stick his hands in, do smicha. It's all in do shchita right there on the north side. Solves all the problems. So Abaye v'Rava Damrei Tavai. Abaye and Rava both say Hakol b'chsav miyan Hashem alai hiskil kol melachos tavnis. So David Melch says every part of the blueprints of the Beis Hamikdash is in Nevuah. If Hashem didn't tell them there's supposed to be a door here, there's no door there. That's why you couldn't logically speaking, that would solve the problem. Put a door there. Yeah, but you can't, right? Hashem didn't say put a door there, so you can't build a Beis Hamikdash. You can't put a door into the side of the Beis Hamikdash. Ikad Amri, there are those say Amar of Yosef. Yosef says, Kol hasomech rosha v'rubo machnis. I was hoping Brian would get to this part, but what happens is that everybody who does smicha has to put his full body weight onto the animal. And if that's the case, you can't just stick your hands in and do smicha. You have to really stick your whole body in and lean on it. So
doesn't that hurt the animal?
yeah, well, I don't think it hurts the animal because these animals were kept pulling wagons and things, right?
Right.
So holding a person's weight is not really going to, it might annoy it, right? It's definitely not going to be as bad as getting its throat slit in a second. So
You might get the boot. The animal will give you the boot, but that's it.
so
Kosher zone is a good name for a restaurant.
there you go, the kosher zone. There you go. Okay. Fine. My timer. What's the reason? Because kol kocha, you got to use your whole weight. Hilkach lo after. Therefore, there's no way for you to stick just your hands in. Okay. So now, let's discuss this brisa about this asham of the mitzora. My kasavar. What is the Tana hold here? Does he think that smicha is a Torah requirement by the korban asham of the mitzora? So tekif l'smicha shchita deoraisa. So that means that you have to do smicha right before shchita. That is a deoraisa rule. So leo v'lismich lehedya. So then, if it's deoraisa and he's got to do it, so then he's got to do it. He's got to go in and he's got to do it. That's what the Torah is telling us he's got to do. Derachman Amar. That's what the Torah is telling you to do. The fact he sticks his thumb in doesn't bother us. Why? Because the Torah says to do it. So if he has to do smicha, he's got to do it. So Rav Ada bar Matana says, even though the Torah says to do it, still can't do it. Why? Because if he takes one step out of line, he's going to be chayev. The Torah permits him to go in order to do the smicha. But he takes one step out, then he's going to get kares. Therefore, it's like Sheva al Tasa. The Rabbanan can tell you, don't do something, right? Ikadamri, another explanation is, Amar Rav Ada bar Matana, that Rav Ada bar Matana says, Smichas Asham Mitzorah de'oraisa, that putting smicha on the asham of the korban asham of the mitzorah is de'oraisa. Take if l'smicha shchita lav de'oraisa, but doing it immediately before is not de'oraisa, right? That's not necessary, right? That's midrabanan. So therefore, since you could do the smicha outside of the azara and afterwards bring it in, so that's the way you do it by the mitzorah, right? To do the smicha outside, bring it in, because it's not necessary.
Now who does the smicha?
The mitzorah.
Why does he get to go in?
Because his korban. Oh, he doesn't get to go in, right? We bring the animal out to him outside the Shar Nikanor, do the smicha, and then bring the animal in.
But don't you have to do it in the north?
You have to do the shechita in the north. So the problem we had was
he doesn't have to do it in the kosher zone.
What we're saying is he has to do the shechita in the kosher zone, but we don't have to worry about him doing his smicha in the kosher zone, right? So therefore, because the requirement of doing smicha right before shechita is d'Rabbanan, therefore we can skip that part. Okay, so now we have a problem on that. Meisvei. So we have a problem because Brisa says v'samach v'shachat. The pasuk says that he should do smicha. That's in pasuk Daled, and then pasuk Hey says he has to slaughter it. Mas smicha b'tahorin, just like smicha has to be somebody's tahor. Av shchita b'tahorin, also shchita has to be somebody's tahor. V'i amar midoraisa b'tmein nami mishkachas la. And if you're going to tell me that right before smicha shchita, so is not a deoraisa, but tmein nami mishkachas la. So then you can do a tummy person could do smicha also, right? Because if smicha is only with tahorim, so we're going to learn from what it says by Shechita, Lifnei Hashem, means it has to be done in the Azara. So therefore, we would learn also, Smicha has to be done in the Azara. And it has to be done immediately before. Therefore, Tameim, the Torah will be telling us that a Tamei person is able to go into the Azara. A Tamei person who can't go into the Azara are not kosher to Smicha, but that's D'Rabbanan, right? Midoraisa, the Tmeim are not kosher to do smicha. Okay, so Masmich turn out shchita b'torim. Now, v'yamart, 1 second, ilav, v'yamart, that the did of take of smicha, the shchita, is not doraisa. That's what we're saying. We were trying to suggest that this requirement is not doraisa, but we can have Tameim do smicha, because why would we have a problem with somebody who's tamei doing smicha? The problem that we have of a tamei person doing smicha is that since the two have to be done right next to each other, and the shechita has to be done on the north side, so somebody who's tamei can't go in. That's our problem. But if it doesn't have to be done right away, then we could do the smicha anywhere. We could just do the smicha outside the base of Mikdash, then bring it in. So Ella Epuch. So rather, you have to say the reverse. The Tana holds smichas Asham B'Torah lav doraisa, that smicha is not doraisa. The take of the smicha shchita doraisa, but when you normally have to do smicha, it has to be done. That is doraisa, right? It's just that this korban, the Asham B'Torah, doesn't require smicha doraisa. So therefore, since the smicha of the korban Asham B'Torah is derabanan, therefore they didn't say he had to do it outside the courtyard.
So it didn't have to be done, or he
did. They did it, but they did it in the courtyard, right? We're trying to figure out why they do it in the courtyard. The answer is either because, right? We wanted to suggest because smicha doesn't have to be done right before shechita midoraisa. No, that seems that it is that way. Right. Rather, this korban's smicha is not deoraisa, so therefore it can be done in the courtyard. Okay. Do you want to stop here?
Yeah, where are we at? Ravina Amar?
We're at Ravina Amar at the top of Lamed Gimel Amud Beis.
Oh, that's a good place.
Good place.
Perfecto.
Wow. Wow.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Shkoya.
Right.
Fantastic.
Sure.